Hello, my beautiful friends and my fellow space blobs and sparkly beings and sensitive beings and all the forms that we might be taking in this season of our life. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with you all and to get to share this road with all of the sensitive, free spirits that we have in this space. And we are going to be talking through Virgo season today and the really potent intuitive magic of this season. And I think it's such a fascinating conversation because I think many of us, when we initially think about Virgo, unless you're somebody who has a Virgo placement or really connected to Virgo, I personally have a Virgo moon, so I think about this topic a lot. And I'm sure many of you out there have Virgo placements as well. But a lot of times we'll hear pop astrology discussions around Virgo being about kind of time management, controlling details, being on top of it, anxiety, antsiness, needing to get things done, wanting to have control over things, detail oriented, on top of it, no nonsense business time, getting grounded, getting to the root of things. And I often find these descriptions to kind of lack a little bit of something. Something is really missing from that ingredient list that isn't being addressed. And I think this is a really big reflection on something that's happening on a much broader cultural scale that goes way beyond all the archetypes in astrology and all of those energetics, but also comes back around to astrology when we're exploring these themes in these seasons, because Virgo is the immutable earth sign connected to the whole one. You know, this idea of the Virgin is about the whole one, the complete one, the one that is all things at once. Virgo is also tied to the gut and to gut knowing and to hearing our feedback from our body, from our souls, and how these two things work together. Virgo is about combining them, that we are a spirit and we are also a body, and that these two are partners. They work together. There is a dance of partnership going on. And Virgo, when it's activated in its full power, is going to be about clarity of knowing, knowing boundaries, knowing when to move, listening to our feedback, really feeling and knowing what's going on in our body and allowing that intuitive guidance to move us in ways that are true. But what I find really fascinating is that most of us grew up in scenarios where we were told to ignore these innate gifts. And I know a lot of us here have very sensitive nervous systems, different nervous systems, interesting connective tissue. If you know, you know. And we're not going to get into that whole topic today specifically, but it connects. A lot of us were taught to ignore these very real things going on in our gut, in our nervous systems, in our bodies, to just sit still, get back in your seat, don't listen to it. And I think what's really fascinating about then the interpretation of Virgo being about anxiety and obsession and attention to detail and all these kind of stressed words and vocabulary reflects a culture full of people who feel disempowered to use their gut knowing. Because what are we left with? I think all of us know what it feels like when we are just trying to push through. We've all been there. You have so much going on. You just try and push through in your life and get it done. And at the end of the day, you feel anxious. You feel tired. You feel like you're missing something. Like, what ingredients am I missing? I should be doing more. I need to be on top of it. We know how it feels to be disconnected from our body and dysregulated after pushing through. And that, to me, is a reflection of how Virgo is often talked about. So I just want to bring that up right here at the front of our conversation before I get into the themes and the transits and some of the deeper things going on, because I think that can be a really helpful way to connect with this season, with this archetype, whether you have it as a personal placement or not, whether you're just curious about Virgo or this season, it doesn't matter. How you connect with this energy can really be about kind of getting back to the root power of Virgo, the whole one. The transmutation process of death and rebirth, coming back home to ourselves, our senses, and our devotion to that practice. So today we are going to just talk through some of the themes that are coming up for this specific, very potent Virgo season and just get ourselves set up for it. Welcome in that magic, welcome in that power. And we'll end with an intuitive reading. So let's get right into it. I have 3 core themes that I think we're going to be noticing. These are kind of overarching themes you might be noticing working with you over these coming weeks as we move through Virgo season. And I hope these will be helpful in just kind of helping connect with yourself and build back into that gut knowing. So one of the first themes that really stood out to me is that this is a season where we're going to be integrating a lot of life lessons over our whole lifetime, as well as maybe in our recent last few years, and taking them seriously and actually listening. Many of us have been moving through a lot of changes. And over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of calling, a lot of demanding change, a lot of dissolving old containers, and that's been a really profound experience. But I think that this Virgo season, what's really interesting about it is that if there's anything where we're trying to hold on to the old way, we're trying to just like keep doing that work in the way that it was done a couple years ago, because we know it works, because we know it's familiar, you might notice there's a little bit of feedback about that. And that it's really hard not to know what we know and to really start to acknowledge some of these bigger life lessons that are coming through. And I'm bringing this up because what I think is really interesting about the Virgo Pisces axis, which is going to be getting lit up quite a bit this Virgo season with the Sun and Mercury moving through there, as well as then opposing the energy of Saturn and Neptune on the other side in Pisces. This axis is going to be very talkative during this Virgo season. We're going to be getting a lot of information about how we're feeling connected to spirit, connected to intuition, and that lighting up of that is going to be really illuminating where we're trying to just keep the status quo. You know, this is a mutable sign, so it's also a wonderful time for reformulating, rethinking, moving pieces around, and really allowing ourselves to kind of feel the fluidity. Even though Virgo is an earth sign, it is mutable, and that means that it's about kind of tilling the soil in a way and breaking things up a little bit. And because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, there's this messenger quality to Virgo season, which is translating all this stuff we might have in our energetic body into something in our physical body. So a lot of us are going to be getting really clear guidance on integrating those life lessons and getting really honest about them. And I think that's just going to be something we're working with the whole season. It's a great place to do lots of journaling, lots of note taking, lots of observation of ourselves. Feeding into that, I think this is also going to be a very physical Virgo season, a lot of physical feedback about what is working and what is not, whether that's environments or routines or people or expectations. Many of us, especially the sensitives among us, I think are going to be noticing where when we try to keep up with a certain schedule or go to a certain location or do things that just don't feel right, our body will be giving us really clear feedback, which is very helpful, I think. Sometimes, you know, when it's giving us just little nudges from the background, we can kind of keep performing at the level we're used to performing. But when it's like really clear signals, it can really help us focus on what our priorities are. Virgo is also the sign tied to health and tied to devotional practices. So how we treat ourselves, how we respect what our individual bodies need. Every single one of us is so different, despite the fact that we kind of come in this, we live in a very cookie cutter culture, you know, prefabricated materials for consumerism, and we're all supposed to fit into these little tidy molds, which I don't know how anybody ever thought that was going to work long term. I don't even know how we've been doing this for these hundreds of years, honestly. But this is a great time to get to know your rhythms. And I think a lot of us are just going to be getting really honest about that. So it's a good thing to know too, just moving through this Virgo season, if you're feeling like you're getting that feedback, that's really good information. You're not alone. On the flip side, what is working? Like, what makes you feel alive? What makes you feel really good? Is it sleeping an extra half hour in the morning? Is it just letting yourself play with paints, even if you're never going to make money off of it or whatever? Like, pay attention to those just as much. That's also going to be working with us really, really magically and giving us a lot of new ideas about where we're getting called forward. The final theme that really came up for me is letting go of control. And I mentioned at the beginning of our chat today that Virgo is often associated with kind of this attention to detail, control, wanting to get things done. And that is that kind of frustrated Virgo energy that's been forced not to express its intuitive guidance, wisdom when it's fully free. But I think Virgo does teach us that our empowerment is not going to come from nitpicking and micromanaging ourselves. It's going to come from a letting go. And I was just listening to an interview with Prentice Hemphill, who is a writer and organizer and activist, beautiful, beautiful being. And they were saying that a relaxed body is a powerful body. And when I heard them say that, a relaxed body is a powerful body, even now, it's bringing chills. To me, that is the heart of Virgo. And it's the heart of kind of this idea of letting go of control as the mechanism through which we're going to embody our dreams and our visions and our truest expression of ourselves. This is a really great time to practice and play with that idea. A relaxed body is a powerful body. That letting go of control does not mean you will suddenly stop doing things in life, and that there is power in this. So those are some really important themes I'm noticing here. It's a very communicative, very loud in a quiet way kind of Virgo season, where you're going to be having this intimacy with yourself and your body. And that conversation is going to be leading to aha moments about our priorities, how we're treating ourselves, and where we're directing our sails and our ships. So yeah, it's a big one. The first part of Virgo season is the very first few days are going to be Mercury retrograde. It will be going direct on August 28th. So Virgo season starts around August 22nd or so, and Mercury goes direct in Leo on August 28th. And Mercury retrograde's been retrograde since August 4th. So it's a great moment to just notice, what were the themes of August? What was August showing you time and again? That Mercury retrograde was both in Virgo and in Leo. It moved through both signs. And so there were a lot of themes around how we treat ourselves, our self-reputation. When nobody else is with us, we sit down by ourselves. How are we talking to ourselves? How are we telling our stories? And how is that reflected in the way we treat ourselves in the day-to-day? So it's a really great moment to connect with that. August 29th, we have Venus moving out of Virgo and into Libra. Venus in Libra, this is its home sign, and this is going to be amplifying the need for peace in our systems, to put down weapons of war on ourselves and look toward peaceful moments as guiding systems, as guidance systems. What's going on when you feel regulated, when you feel safe, when you feel cared for? Pay attention to that. That's what Venus in Libra is going to be all about. Now we're going to start getting into some really interesting energy. When we go into September, this is where things start getting really powerful. So September 1st, Pluto, our dear friend Pluto, is moving back into Capricorn. This is the final visitation for Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto is going to move. It's in a retrograde right now. It's moving backward, so it appears to us, and moving back through into Capricorn. And then it will start moving forward again this autumn and then move out of Capricorn finally on November 19th. So we are having this final visitation, and it's beginning here during Virgo season, which I think is really profound. I was talking about, this physical feedback, integrating the lessons of our lifetime, really hearing them, really honoring them, taking them seriously, not pushing away the senses of how we need to treat ourselves. And I think this final Pluto movement through Capricorn that begins here in September is a time of really recognizing that. This is the end of an era for those of us who are old enough to have been adults this entire time that Pluto has been in Capricorn. And maybe even if you weren't, maybe you were a 5-year-old when Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008. We've changed. We are not the same form that we were in 2008. And we're really integrating that physically. So you might be feeling kind of like time melts and you're visiting different versions of yourself through that 16-year cycle and integrating and honoring and releasing. So honoring it is so important here. And I think it's going to be a pretty profound couple of months while we work through that. On September 2nd, into the 3rd, we have the new moon in Virgo. And this new moon in Virgo happening right after that Pluto moving back into Capricorn is, I think, really symbolic of powerful things happening. This new moon is also going to be ushering us into eclipse season. It's not an eclipse, but as the new moon that kind of begins and sets off some energetics, it is starting those waves of energy moving through. So this new moon is very intuitive. It's going to be bringing up a lot of realization, aha moments. It's going to be activating that gut knowing. We're going to be getting a lot of feedback. I'm going to have a whole chat about that coming out here very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. But it's also ushering us into eclipse energetics. That next full moon in Pisces is the first of 2 eclipses. This is a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. It's conjunct Neptune and sextiling Uranus in Taurus. And it is the first nod. This full moon, this lunar eclipse, is the first nod to the North Node moving into Pisces in about, I think it's in January 2025, yes. So we are starting to get hints also. It's a very visionary full moon in eclipse. It's going to be washing in, like the ocean is going to be washing in some new waves of energy. I'll also be talking about that in depth. And that energy is really, really powerful. So I'm just going to stop there because there's so much going on this Virgo season. That's enough to work with. Pluto moving back into Capricorn, eclipse season beginning, working through Mercury, moving into its post-shadow phase and its direct motion, and working with Venus in Libra. I think that is plenty to work with. So let's get into our intuitive tarot. Every time I sit down to do one of these little ushering in of a new season, I always think, I'm just going to sit down, chat for 10 minutes, just do like a really gentle, sweet, short little chat. And then 20 minutes goes by and I realize, oh my gosh, we've barely scratched the surface. I have so much more I could say. I know some of you would love to just sit here. We could just sit here for like an hour and talk, and others probably like having things a little shorter. Can't win them all. But yeah, I'm just, every time it makes me laugh how often I will plan on having a really short, sweet chat. And I can't help it. Just keeps moving. The Magician came out. Wow. I love that, actually. The Magician always connects for me a little bit with Mercury, with that translation energy, as above, so below. That's a tagline for the Magician, but also for Virgo. Because Virgo is this energetic, it's tied to stories like Persephone and Demeter. These stories where you start with a being who comes up as this like flowering being who's making flowers in the world, and then goes into the underworld and then resurfaces and then ascends to the heavens. And the magician is about weaving those things together, the unseen and the physical. And that being where, that meeting point being where magical things happen, that meeting point being where movement happens in life. Eight of Swords. Oh my gosh, y'all. This is one of my favorite intuitive cards ever to work with, and it reminds me of a thwarted Virgo energetic that is just about to be reopened. Oh my gosh, I love it. Let's pull one more to go along with these two, because wow. The magic in this reading is really potent. Queen of Pentacles, very Virgo. Very Virgo. This is so fascinating seeing these cards come out together like this. I am loving it. I'm loving it. Let's talk through this whole process. So magician, you know, the beginning creative. Now, what's really interesting about the magician is there's a centeredness, right? There's a coming to the center, and through that centeredness, being able to channel vision, channel ideas. So really the first thing I see here is that the magician isn't busy running around trying to like check everything off of their to-do list and controlling the situation. They're finding their power from being that lightning rod that channels, right? So every time we want to scatter our energy in 100 different directions, the magician is a reminder to take a breath and come back here. That's where the good movement is coming from. The magician is also magical. It's exciting. It's about new things that want to be conducted into the world, you know, a conductor. And Venus and Virgo is very much about translation from the energetic into the physical. And so it's a very natural combo here. Many of us are going to be getting new instructions. We may not understand all the instructions, but we're getting new instructions, and we're figuring out how to center enough, how to work with our nervous system enough to let that channel through. So it's just like a really nice reminder. And that kind of goes hand in hand with this Eight of Swords energy here, because the reason that I got so excited when this card came out is that whenever this card comes out, it is the card that is denoting huge breakthroughs. I'm getting full body chills right now, but it is the card that appears when we might feel all bound up and like we can't see, we can't hear, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what it's going to look like, and yet something beyond our sight and comprehension is going on. Now, once again, one of the lessons of Eight of Swords is that we have, rather than panicking, rather than using all our energy kind of flailing around, we have to get still and listen to that deep call underneath. So again, there's this get still, because part of the thing with Eight of Swords is this is a person who is actually free to walk and move forward, but in panicking can feel frozen and tight. So it's a reminder, take care of your nervous system, pay attention to where you feel centered and calm, go there. Whatever that looks like for you, try to find ways to bring that in so that you can have breakthroughs, because whenever this card shows up, it means something's changing, new elements are coming, we're getting used to it, we might feel disoriented, we might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's happening. It's very exciting energy. And then we have Queen of Pentacles. Intuitive, grounded, introspective. Now, what I love about Queen of Pentacles, it's a message that I think many of us just need to hear sometimes, which is that when each next step arises, we will know what to do, we will have what we need. That's the Queen of Pentacles transmits the energy of confidence through the process. Confidence to know that she can trust herself, that she can hear herself, and that she will trust and hear herself as she moves through the process. She doesn't need to try and control 100 steps ahead. Once again, when we're allowed to activate that Virgo gut knowing, our nervous system knowing, it does make us more able to handle life in the long term. right? And when that's disabled, when that's not allowed to function in the way that it's meant to function, which can be hard in this modern world, there are situations where my access to my gut knowing is not available. If I'm overwhelmed, if I'm overstimulated, it won't happen. But if I prioritize that as one of my greatest gifts and tools, I feel much safer in my journey. So every single one of these cards is going back again and again to find your center, find places that make you feel some peace and some quiet, and move from there. And just keep doing that in little steps. And I think this season's going to really reveal so much about ourselves, about the changing world, about compassion, about a dream and a vision of a world that is much more caring and much more compassionate. And that is really exciting to think about. We are going to be diving into the minor arcana very, very soon here, right at the end of this Virgo season. I'm going to be beginning that journey about these rhythms of life and intuition that are in all 4 of the minor arcana suits. So if you are interested in allowing the poetry of those life cycles to work with you, deepen your tarot practice, just get a little bit more into the storytelling of your soul, any of those things appeal to you, I would love to see you over on my Patreon for that beautiful, rich journey. You can also find all my weekly resources that I put out every single week for my patrons there. And you can join me for Magic Makers, where we meet once a month to talk about life, to talk about transits, to get to know our natural rhythms and who we are as people and express that. So I'd love to see you in all those places. I love it when you stay here, if you subscribe or you like this video. That means the world to me. I will see you back here very soon for our new moon in Virgo conversation, the beginning of eclipse season, and so much more coming up. I can't wait to chat again. Talk to you soon.